Question in the area of public employee pension reform, kind of a hot issue right now. There's widespread belief that public pension systems for government employees, including teachers, are not financially sustainable. It's evident in many of the systems that we see, including the talk around the Minneapolis Employee Retirement Fund, which identified about a $700 million problem in its fund, and the Minnesota Teachers Retirement Association, which estimated during the legislative session its needs at about $200 million. This issue is especially concerning to business owners, where pension system changed years ago from a defined benefit system to a defined contribution system. What can we do to fix the current problem and prevent it from growing in the future? We'll start with Representative Emmer.
Well, first you have to change. Government has to reform itself the way that the private sector has. You know, it's more than just pensions, Bruce. We look now, you've seen some of the studies, hopefully, that have been coming out, that shows on average a person who works in the private sector in a job similar to that of somebody who's working in the private sector is making on average 30 to 40% less. That's not right. More importantly, when you look at government employees, and by the way, these are good people. I don't fault them. It's human nature. They should try to do the best that they can do, but this is where the imbalance comes in. Not only do our public employees make on average 30 to 40% more than private sector employees in the same positions or similar positions, but then they have health care insurance that's gold-plated health care, while people in the private sector are lucky if they're keeping theirs. And then you get to the pension aspect. Those defined benefit plans, they get the guarantee of their future, while the rest of us, if we're lucky enough to have a 401k plan, are watching it ride the roller coaster of the market. And we're either delaying retirement or we're wondering whether we're ever going to be able to retire. You have to look at this as a long-term issue that has to be dealt with. The last legislature, it was very disappointing. Yeah, we made some changes, just tweaked it a little bit, but there was no long-term structural reform, so the debt still is there. And I'll give you one of the reforms that, so-called reforms that was passed. When you have, for instance, a mortgage and you've got 20 years left and you've got a certain amount of debt that's under that mortgage, guess what? If you just extend that mortgage to 40 years, all of a sudden it looks a lot better. That was one of the things we did with the public employee pensions last session. That's not the answer for long-term structural reform. The answer for long-term structural reform is to have defined benefit plans, defined contribution plans like the private sector.
Senator Dayton, your response to that question.
Well, years ago, companies like General Mills provided pensions for their employees, and they knew if they worked hard all their lives and made their career with that company, they would have a secure retirement income. Now, most companies have gone to defined contribution, and employees are on their own. And you ask employees, especially after the vagaries of the stock market the last couple of years, where their retirement savings have dropped by 50% or more, and all that insecurity, if they think they're better off under this new system, I'd be surprised if a lot of them would agree with it. If you talk to a woman up in Two Harbors whose husband died after working 31 years for U.S. Steel, and she was told by the company that because of the intricacies of their plan, which she wasn't aware of, she's now going to receive only $51 a month. And she looks at it with tears streaming down her eyes and says, how does they expect me to live on $51 a month? Then maybe appreciate why a defined benefit plan is something that people who have it aren't willing to actually give up very readily, because it's retirement security. People who work all their careers in the public sector, you know, they don't make a lot of money in total, and they don't have a lot of retirement income, but they have secure income. They bargain for those retirement benefits, as they bargain also for their health insurance. And the school districts of this state buy health insurance on the private market, just like companies do. And try telling a woman who's a clerk at a school who can get the best policy possible for herself, a single mother and 3 children, for $20,000, but she only makes $18,000 a year. So she has to insure herself as the breadwinner and hope the other 3 children don't get sick. Ask her if that's a gold-plated plan. Do these plans need to be actuarially sound? Yes. In fact, when I was with State Board of Investment and Governor Carlson headed the State Board of Investment, they were. And with, again, the downturn in the market, they've lost some of that actuarial security, and they made changes in the last session, about $2.1 billion. If that doesn't work, we'll have to do more. But I think to denigrate people because they want retirement security is really misguided.
Mr. Horner, your thoughts on our government pension system?
Well, this is another one of those areas where we've heard great stories and no solutions. First of all, I do want to say, Representative Emmer, I have to be honest, I haven't heard that statistic other than from you that public employees are making 30 to 40% more than private sector workers for comparable jobs. If that is true, and I have no reason to doubt your veracity, if it is true, shame on you who have been in charge to allow that disparity to grow. There's the problem. So we do need to make a transition. Everybody agrees. I mean, we all acknowledge that we have to start making a transition with younger workers coming into our public workforce to go to a defined contribution plan. And we can sit down and make that happen. But look, here's the honest answer. For those people who are close to retirement, those people who have banked on these plans, we can't pull the rug out from under them. You know, the largest public employee fund estimates that in 10 years, the best case scenario is that we'll have 60 cents on the dollar to pay off the pensions. We need to find those 40 cents. And there are only 3 solutions, regardless of what my friends say. The employees can pay for it through higher contributions, the retirees can pay for it through lower benefits, or we can pay for it through higher taxes. And the reality, it's going to take all 3. Let's be honest. It's going to take all 3. It's going to take sitting down with public employees, with unions, with interest groups, and figuring out how to do this. And there's the challenge of the next 4 years. The Democrats, they're not going to challenge the public unions. They're not going to challenge them to come to the table and be part of the solution. But the Republicans aren't going to challenge Minnesotans to do what's right. We need a governor who's willing to do both.
Representative Emmer, your 1-minute rebuttal.
Yeah, I won't take a minute. You left out one important one. You know, this is the thing that we complain about, and I'll take responsibility for being in the legislature for the past 6 years, but take a look at some of the ideas we've offered to eliminate gridlock. Trying to get the legislature, give the governor a different tool other than unallotment, give the governor the opportunity to declare a fiscal emergency. And that's simply defined as your revenues are not going to meet your expenditures, and then force the legislature to come up with a balanced budget within 45 days. Imagine a world where the governor has a budget out by the end of January and the legislature has one out by the middle of February. Be a lot more work that's done that's credible. But you left out the most important one. It's not just asking for the good people of Minnesota to pony up more money when they're struggling trying to pay the mortgage, put food on the table, when a lot of them are unemployed. It's about reducing spending in government and starting to be responsible with our government, not just constantly going back to the well, which, quite frankly, is drying up.
And
Mr.
let me
Horner.
just quickly rebut. If you go to Horner2010.com, you'll see my plan to reduce spending in government. If you go to TomEmmer.com,
Next question. Thank you, Mr. Horner. It's our final question of the day. It's before our closing remarks, and it relates to the attitude, general attitude toward businesses. This question was submitted by TwinWest Board Chair Steve Wise of Casker Machine Products. We've all heard stories about neighboring states and how they treat their businesses not just like cherished citizens, but as good cultural components of society and contributors. As Minnesota's next governor, what will you do to improve the business climate, encourage business expansion and job growth, and attract new businesses to the state? It is the million-dollar question today. For the answers, we'll start with Senator Dayton.
2 years ago this month, I was up in Thief River Falls, and I met with the self-described very Republican mayor of Thief River Falls, and he expressed his frustration because there are 2 companies up there, DigiKey, which employs about 2,000 people, and I'd actually like to add about 900 more jobs up there if they can get the infrastructure improvements to the airport, and Articat. And he couldn't get a stoplight on Highway 59 where 4,000 people almost come to and from work every day. And he couldn't get the time of day from the governor or the commissioner of transportation. So I said, well, I know where the governor lives. I'll write him a letter. And I did. And he bucked it to the commissioner, who responded a month later in the middle of September and informed the mayor that he couldn't get up there 3 months later in the middle of December. And then finally did. And according to the mayor, flew up in a chartered plane for probably half the cost of the stoplight, to tell them that unfortunately was not in the transportation plan until 2013. Well, I went back several months ago to check up. Well, now they're studying it for a year. Meanwhile, nothing is happening. And I went and met with the executives for DigiKey to let them know that if I'm governor, they don't have to come to the Capitol to try to get that. I will go to them, and I promise them if I'm governor, there'll be a stoplight in the bonding bill next year, and the day after I sign it, I will come up with a shovel and start digging the hole myself, and I will. That's the kind of hands-on assistance I learned from Governor Rudy Perpich, who was the best jobs governor this state ever had. Back then when we had progressive taxes, but where anybody in this state, anyone in this country, anywhere in this world that he could identify that had a job to be provided to Minnesota, Rudy was on a plane, he was on the phone, and that's what I'll do as governor. We need to sell this state. We need to be as proactive as we possibly can. We need to let businesses know, as we did through the Star Cities Economic Development Training Program when I was the commissioner, how the local governments can identify business opportunities right in their own communities, which are always the best sources of new job creation. And if I'm governor, I will go with those local development officials, chambers, and others, every one of those businesses, and let them know they're important here in Minnesota. We want their jobs right here in this state.
Thank you, Senator Dayton. Representative Emmer, your response to that question.
Well, first, Senator, DigiKey, I don't know if you're aware, but it's a great employer, as we both know, up in the Thief River Falls area. I don't know if you're aware, but DigiKey is a sole proprietorship. And the taxes that you've proposed would not only preclude DigiKey from expanding, but may very well have them packing up and leaving. It would hit them dramatically hard, and I hope you talk to them about that. The first thing that you have to do is redesign government so that it's efficient. Eliminate all the duplication in government. We've got several agencies in this state that have all got rule-making authority, jurisdiction that overlaps, and now they're all competing for the ability to enforce their rules as well. You've got to make Minnesota a one-window stop for business, and it's got to be predictable so that when somebody comes in and wants to take advantage of an opportunity, they know how much it's going to cost and how much time it's going to take. Second, you must reduce taxes. I mean, I'd love when I hear all the time, you got to give more. Folks, look at Rhode Island. In June, Rhode Island, with a moderate Republican governor and a Democrat-controlled legislature, passed across-the-board income tax cuts. Took 5 tax classifications, reduced them to 3, took the top taxable rate, reduced it by almost 40% when asked why. Because they had to stop the outflow of jobs from Rhode Island. Next, you got to eliminate excessive and unnecessary regulation that frankly is stopping this state from expanding, having opportunities expand and bringing new investment and jobs to this state. You got to create an attitude that Minnesota is open for business. Minnesota welcomes your business. Minnesota wants to do whatever is necessary to help you realize your opportunities. We got to change this idea in Minnesota that government is the one that can tell you best how to invest your money. We got to give you the opportunity to do that because people, if given the right opportunity, the right incentive, will grow better opportunities for themselves. And then it's that old adage, a rising tide lifts all boats.